If you think the Invincible show was dark, wait until we tell you some scenes from the comics. When it comes to comic book adaptations, there exists a fine line between staying true to the source material and catering to the sensibilities of a broader audience. One such example is the acclaimed series, Invincible, known for its vibrant animation, compelling characters, and notably, its willingness to delve into darker themes. While the show captivates viewers with its gripping narrative and dynamic action sequences, there are moments from the comic that, while too dark for adaptation, remain integral to understanding the complexity of its world. These scenes, from morally ambiguous decisions to gut-wrenching betrayals, offer a glimpse into the gritty underbelly of the Invincible universe, challenging audiences to confront the darker aspects of heroism and the human condition. Despite their omission from the show, these scenes serve as crucial touchstones in the comic's narrative, enriching the story with layers of depth and nuance. Let's talk about all of them. But before you begin, a fair warning, spoilers starting now. Number 1, Oliver kills Mauler twins by accident. Since their debut in the first episode, the Mauler twins have consistently left their mark on the scene, even taking on some of the mightiest heroes. Interestingly enough, their end comes at the hands of Mark's half-brother, Oliver. In Invincible number 52, a younger Oliver finds himself struggling to control his powers completely. So, during a showdown with the Mauler twins, he accidentally delivers a fatal blow to one of them, resulting in a messy spill of blood and guts. When the other twin considers surrendering, Oliver unintentionally ends his life as well, later claiming it was all a mistake. Considering how the Mauler twins usually add a comedic touch to the series, their death in such a shocking manner might catch fans off guard, and it adds a darker tone to the story. Number 2, Adam Eve gets severely injured by the hands of Conquest. In the animated series, the arrival of Conquest is bound to happen, especially considering the impact of the Viltrumite villains in the comic storyline. Conquest is the big bad Viltrumite who's all about overseeing destruction, particularly through these evil versions of Invincible. He takes things to a whole new level of brutality by even attacking Adam Eve, though she manages to survive somehow. Needless to say, this news doesn't sit well with Mark. He goes on a serious rampage, taking things to a level of violence that's pretty intense, even for a comic book. The showdown between Mark and Conquest ends with Mark literally tearing into Conquest, biting off his muscles and smashing his head until it's nothing but mush. It's pretty brutal stuff. Number 3, Fighting on the Sun. As the Invincible comic nears its conclusion, one of the most intense moments happens when Thrag and Invincible fought in a mad battle that occurred on the scorching surface of the sun. With each turn of the page, the intensity of the fight grew, visually capturing the escalating tension. This was vividly portrayed as the extreme heat of the sun began to take its toll on both characters, causing their skin to melt away. The comic showed a disturbing transformation, with Throg and Invincible appearing as fiery, ugly, and gross figures of muscle and blood. It was a visceral portrayal of the brutality and consequences of their conflict that was, well, it left a lasting impression on readers as the comic reached its climax. Number 4, Anissa forcing Mark to have physical relation. Anissa was assigned the duty of procreating on Earth, much like others of her kind. Viltrumites. She had her eyes set on Invincible and intended to have a child with him due to his half-Viltrumite heritage, but when she approached him with her intentions, he turned her down flat and expressed his desire to return home to Eve. Despite his refusal, she didn't give a damn and insisted on her plan. Despite Mark's refusal, Anissa becomes aggressive and physically overpowered him. Then she forced herself on him. But guess what's the crazy part? This uncomfortable scene isn't confined to a single page in the comics and can understandably unsettle the audience. Number 5, Bulletproof killing his parents. Bulletproof always lived in the shadow of his identical twin, Tyrone, who was the apple of their parents' eyes. Tyrone was a geneticist with an unhealthy obsession with superheroes. He went to extreme lengths, even resorting to drugging Zendali, aka Bulletproof, to conduct experiments on him. One of these experiments granted Zendali superhuman strength, but it tragically led to an explosion that took Tyrone's life. Despite Zendali's protest of innocence, his parents accused him of being responsible for Tyrone's death and cast him as a murderer in their eyes. In a desperate turn of events, Zendali's girlfriend took matters into her own hands. She fatally struck Mrs. Randolph with a pan when she witnessed the parents' disbelief. The act of violence escalated the situation and enraged Mr. Randolph. In a moment of self-defense, Zendali found himself forced to take his father's life. Caught in a storm of tragic events, Zendal's life took an unexpected and dark turn, forever changing the dynamics of his family and his own sense of self. Number 6. Nightmares. When the ruthless Grand Regent Throg and his Viltrumite army make their way to Earth following the Viltrumite War, Mark is faced with a horrifying sight that leaves him deeply shaken. In his vision, he sees Throg committing unspeakable acts of violence, including massacring innocent people and destroying Mark's own home. The nightmare reaches its peak when Throg brutally takes Mark's mother, Debbie, and cruelly rips off her head. With Debbie's head bleeding in his hand, Throg taunts and teases Mark. It's a moment that scares Mark deeply and leaves him traumatized by the sheer brutality and cruelty he had witnessed in his dreams. Number 7. Throg kills Oliver. So we talked about Oliver Grayson before, right? He's actually Mark's half-brother, and he's the superhero called Kid Omni-Man, and later Young Omni-Man. He's all into this Viltrumite stuff, like Mark, but when things get really crazy and Throg, the big boss Viltrumite, decides to go all out and harm Mark and his family, Oliver's like, no way, I'm out. He even tries to warn Mark's daughter Tara about the danger coming her way, but Throg, being the absolute villain he is, doesn't just stop at threats. He straight up breaks Tara's leg. Oliver can't stand by and watch, so he tries to fight Throg. But unfortunately, it's like throwing a pebble at a mountain. Throg just tears Oliver apart. It's brutal. Number 8. Clash of the Titans. Throg, also known as Battle Beast, was a hardcore fighter always looking for someone strong enough to give him a real challenge. Then came Throg, who totally lived up to the hype. They squared off for days, just beating the tar out of each other. Throg even ripped open his own belly to make things even, since Throg was already hurt. In the end, though, the super strong Viltrumite guy Throg got the better of him. He ripped out Throg's heart, sending blood and guts flying everywhere. Even with his dying breath, Throg thanked Throg for the awesome fight. To show off his victory, Throg took Throg's skin and, wore it like a trophy. Talk about brutal. So this marks the end of the most brutal scenes in Invincible comics. By the way, which was most disturbing according to you? Let me know down in the comments section. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.